Okay, great. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Mind Heist episode 148. How's it going, Kaya? Kaya's with me this episode.
Alhamdulillah, bro. All good. How you doing?
Good, alhamdulillah. Is this your third or fourth time on?
Are we counting the lost tapes now, or just the published ones?
Yeah. Oh, just the published
this
one.
I think this is the fourth published one because we did one on like the Hijra.
Oh, so that means we did 5, yeah, in total.
Yeah, is it? Or yeah, I guess. Or this will be the fifth. Technically, yeah, it'll be the fifth one.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah.
How's UAE these days? You know, with the winter time is always good, right?
Yeah, man. Alhamdulillah. I met up with a few of our mutual friends yesterday or the day before. It's nice. Alhamdulillah, went out for a meal. It's good, man. The weather is nice and pleasant, mild. It's starting to get warm already. To be honest, I'm not a huge
Really,
fan. Which part?
It's getting warm now.
Slightly, yeah. I mean, it's like hitting in the daytime. It's like 24, 25. Like daytime, it's like it's no longer like jacket. Or I'm wearing like this hoodie. It's not really hoodie weather anymore. In the daytime, it's t-shirt weather. But nighttime is still a bit chilly. So yeah, it's getting there. And I'm not a huge fan of like the really cold. I say really cold, but the December, January gets quite cold, and I'm always looking forward to the heat coming back. To be honest.
Yeah. What level though? Like August level? You actually like that?
Nah, I want to say I like it, but you know what? I can definitely stand it. Like I don't like feel the need to like run away from it. Do you know what I mean? I'm quite happy for it to be like that. You manage it by being in the car, by being indoors most of the time.
Yeah.
But I don't hate it. It's not ideal. But like with the time between like now, like February to June, it's really nice. And then again, like September to like December or September to November, those are like my favorite times. It's kind of hot, but not like unbearably hot.
I think I liked November, December the most. Yeah, January, February, it does sometimes. I mean, especially like in inland, like in LA, for example, it gets too cold sometimes, like a little bit too cold. Because obviously, no one in the UAE is like wearing big jackets. Although they try and sell that in the shops, but like only idiot will buy that. Really, you fall for the trap. Like you think. Sometimes I notice, people want to like feel like it's winter, so they buy the jacket for winter. Only to realize like it's not that cold, man.
Not that cold,
Yeah.
Although it's an interesting thing, right? I don't know if I've just got used to it. It's probably just me getting used to it, and it's not some sort of like big mystery. But for example, when it's like 19 degrees here, I'm freezing. Like I'm cold, and it's like in the UK, 90 degrees is like let's go to the beach.
Something.
Yeah, man. Like it's like that's really hot. So I don't know what that's about. Whether I'm just used to like much hotter weather. Is Celsius? Is it different from place to place? I thought it doesn't make any sense, but that's how it feels. Like it feels like I shouldn't feel this cold right now, but interesting one.
And in UAE, I always noticed the sun wouldn't burn me as much as in other countries.
I've never really stuck around to find out. Like I'm not very.
Well, obviously, bro, you're living the normal life, which is car to building to house to different thing. And that's the thing. Obviously, you don't walk too much in UAE usually. But sometimes, when I was a kid, didn't have a car and this kind of stuff, we would actually walk in the sun a lot, and it would take a long time to get some sort of tan or even to burn. Versus if I'm in Algeria, Turkey, UK, like I will burn or tan or whatever like much quicker. So I think my guess is that the dust in the UAE like stops certain rays or whatever getting through.
That makes sense. It's unavoidable. It's a desert at the end of the day. Even on a clear day, it's going to be a little bit of sand in the air.
Exactly, definitely, yeah. Recently you probably heard about the snowstorm in Istanbul and stuff. That was
crazy video. So what happened there, man? Like you got like stuck somewhere at one point?
Yeah, I was really, it was 20 minutes drive away from my house. But it took us, I told you the number, like 15 hours to get home or something, just because of the entire roads just blocked. Either our car couldn't move, or the road just had cars people just abandoned their cars kind of thing because the snow was just impossible to move kind of thing. Like if you think about it, for example, one road, it was clear, right? So people had abandoned their cars, but on the sides of the roads. So there was like one lane space to get through. So we're going down the road. And then just before a roundabout, there's just a bus blocking that one road. So anything like that, obviously, it shows the vulnerability of the road network, I suppose. Like one bus blocking one road can actually cause huge issues, because then we're stuck, right? We can't go forward. We have to go back, which means now we have to push the car because uphill and blah, blah, blah. And that, imagine that happening on the scale of a city the size of Istanbul. I don't know if the whole city was affected to that level. I'm not sure. But like a few days later, where I live, it was like still very much snowy. But in like the kind of touristic area, it was much less. Like, I don't know if it just didn't snow as much. I don't know if they took care of it better. I don't know.
Probably have some sort of like ploughing system in the touristy areas.
They have it everywhere. Like actually, that day when we got stuck, we were driving to the place we were, and there was like a car park with just plow truck after like 20, 30 of them, like kind of ready. Yeah. But I don't know, not ready enough. I don't know what happened really. I think it was a combination of they didn't anticipate that level of snow, and also maybe they just held back a little bit in terms of, I don't know. But, you know, well, I saw a guy the day or so after, and I said, wow, like, look, you know, you see the snow and stuff. He's like, yeah, it's great. I was like, obviously I was stuck. He's like, you know, it's necessary. And it's true, wallah, yani. We just want to live our life with what suits us. But really, it was actually too warm of a winter, I think, in terms of what the trees and the this and that need. You know, animals need a certain amount of cold, certain low temperatures for things to go smoothly, or that's how it's adapted, right? That's how it works. So when we see snow, we think, oh, bad for me, but really, I need there's benefits for everyone. Maybe if we just have to miss out on a little thing. Actually, speaking of like, you know, getting stuck in these things, I actually, you know, because I don't have a car, like in UAE, it's a no kind of, if you can afford a car, you must get a car in UAE, really, right? Or you're going to suffer. Over here, I haven't got a car, and I decided I'm not going to get a car. And I thought, what I'm thinking of doing is getting an electric scooter. Yeah. So, so because if I was in London, I reckon there would be no need for it actually. Because in London, buses just come. Yeah. Loads of buses. And, actually I was going to say they're on time, but I don't even know if they're on time, because I used to just go to the bus stop and they come, you know.
They are. Usually they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Usually pretty good.
Definitely.
From what I remember.
You know, when people tell me London transport is not good, I tell them, look, you haven't visited enough countries.
It is good. I mean, as much as I dislike London, you can't disagree that the buses and trains, there's a lot of them, and if they're late, it's by like maximum 5 minutes, and there's like another one 2 minutes behind. Yeah, it is a sick system. Yeah,
but over here, although there are lots of buses, of course there's metro, the bus, I just don't find it reliable. Like, I could be waiting 5 minutes, or I could be waiting 35 minutes, you know?
Right.
And so that just makes me not want to go out to anywhere that's not walking distance. So the idea of the scooter is I go these places that are maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes a ride away. I could just go with the scooter. And there's a service as well here, which it's like, I think they have it elsewhere because it's not a Turkish company. They have Zipcar. So you can rent a car by the hour. You could do day as well if you want. But for me to get there, it's like a bus ride. So that could also be a solution for me. Like, I could ride to that place and get the car from there, which is useful. You know, when you have kids, taking public transport, it's quite a pain and stuff, right? Yes. So the ability to have a car when I want and only pay for it when I'm using it, kind of thing. I thought that was a good compromise between like getting a car and then just relying on buses fully.
Is it affordable, that Zipcar thing?
Well, it's funny you say that, because yesterday they just upped the prices. So it's about, it's like 45 liras an hour. Because, you know, if you think about going somewhere with your family for the day, and to make it more convenient, you go by car rather than bus and all that. You might need a car for how long? Like 4 hours, let's say.
Yeah.
So let's say it's what did I say? 45 liras.
45, yeah. So let's say 4 hours. So that's 180 liras, which is not, it's under £10. That's a great deal.
Yeah. Of course, you can't get into the trap of using pounds.
Yeah,
you know?
I know.
But the way I calculated it,
today.
The way I calculated it was, okay, buying a car is very expensive here, right? So buying a car, like the minimum car would be more than £10,000, right? Even though in UK you can get cars for, you know, even £500 you can get a car, but you know, a decent car in UK would be like 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, like that, right? But here it's like,
continue, but I'll come back to that. It's changed, you know. But
I heard that as well. Yeah. So just comparing the two, like I thought, okay, let's assume I'm gonna rent a car for 4 hours, like we said, 1 day a week, because really that's realistically what I would do. That might even be too much, like more than I would need it. So I calculated how much I would spend in a year, and it was just so far off what it would cost to buy a car. But also, you know, like I told you before, I hate cars in terms of maintenance and will it break and all of that. So it makes things easy. So then I've got the option to go to walk, which I don't want. This is what I'm worried about, is not walking as much, you know, because I have the option of the scooter. So I want to keep walking, you know, especially to Salah. Whenever I'm like not late or whatever, definitely be walking. If I'm late, I've got the option of going faster. Then the medium range places I could just go by scooter. And then whenever I've got my family or want to go somewhere further, I can rent the car kind of thing. So, and also you can get the scooter to the metro station and then bring it with you on the metro station and go, you know, when you get off, use it as well. So we'll see how it goes, yeah.
That's good though, man. Like the Zipcar thing.
Yeah.
Like typically when I've looked at prices in like UK and other places, like doesn't really make that much sense. Like, it makes sense still, but it's just expensive. Like you look at the fee of like if you're going to take it at 4 hours, 5 hours, and it's off-putting. You know, it's like, I can't remember exactly what it was, but when I looked at it, I was like, nah, I won't do that.
Yeah.
But you know, 45 liras based on today's conversion rate, that's pretty damn good. So
yeah,
maybe call them and say, look, I want one a bit closer. Like again, you don't want to take away the walking stuff, but if it's like too far away or a bit of a pain to get there, maybe say, look, can you place one a bit closer to like this area? If there's demand, I'll probably do it. Yeah.
They have another service where it's more like they're parked all over random places. You know how that works. That's not available in this area, I think. And what I remember hearing someone telling me, like they only allow Turkish citizens to use that one. Maybe something to do with insurance or something. I don't know.
So you need to call them up and put on your Turkish. Give me your best Turkish for it. Araba buraya şimdi.
So it seems like a good option. Yeah, inshallah. What are you saying about the car prices?
Yeah, so I was talking to my little brother, and he was looking for a car a couple months ago. And so when I was in UK, so maybe this is almost, I guess this is like 10 years ago. No, not 10 years ago. This is like maybe 7 years ago when I was looking for a car. I put into Auto Trader. I was looking to spend between £3,000 and £5,000, something like that, right? And back then, that kind of filter would get you like decent BMWs, Mercedes, 1 Series, 3 Series BMWs. They were like 5 to 8 years old kind of thing, but still good quality. The mileage wasn't crazy, and that's the kind of car I got. Right, I got like a 3 Series BMW at the time, and it was around that price, and it lasted me for a long time. But now I did the same thing when he was telling me, like, I can't find any cars. Right, this is in UK a couple of months ago. He said all the dealers are telling me there's no cars available because of this microchip shortage, supply chain stuff. They were all like, yeah, we've got no cars. We're getting another shipment in like March, so you got to wait. And the price was just like crazy. And I went on Auto Trader and I just put in the same kind of filter that I would have put in like 7 years ago. And there was only smart cars. No BMWs, no Mercedes, nothing like that. Just smart cars around that price. To get those BMWs and stuff, you have to look at like, £8,000, £9,000 now. Mm-hmm. So it seems to be like a global thing because of this supply chain stuff and also this microchip stuff. I think it's two different issues happening at the same time. Yeah. I can't remember which natural resource that we're running out of. I think it's nickel. I think that's a problem with the microchip stuff. Could be wrong, but yeah, cars in general becoming expensive.
I think it's also the demand on chip manufacturers, which there are not many chip manufacturers in the world actually, even though like so much relies on it. And so imagine like, you know, like TSMC, for example, they're like the biggest, I think, manufacturer of chips. If they need to make like normal day kind of thing, they need to make 10,000 chips. If they are closed because of Corona for 3 days, now they're 30,000 chips behind. So that's 30,000 products that can't, you know, go out. And I guess that built up over time to where it's like they're a million chips behind or whatever. And I think more and more products are using chips as well. So demand increase as well.
Yeah, that is crazy. I think that's pretty much what it is. And the fact there's not that many manufacturers and there's a limited amount of resources, which is diminishing rapidly. Yeah, man, it's a bit crazy. Crazy.
So, bro, you were talking about, obviously we're talking about UAE and stuff. Do you want to start the topics, with that whole hijrah thing you're talking about?
Yeah, so I guess we're doing like, you know, I think today's theme is like, you know, building a better future for the ummah, or you know, something like this. I don't know what title we're going to give it after, but you know, I think hijrah is a big driver of that, right? And it is broader than that, obviously, but I think it's a big driver of it. And I think one thing I want to do, whether I do it or I can inspire somebody else to do it, is to set up an initiative or, you know, initiatives where Muslims in the West are being educated. Firstly, I think it comes in three parts, right? Educated, enabled, and empowered to do hijrah. All right. And I'm not advocating, you know, we're not getting political here. I'm not advocating for a specific country. I think any Muslim country is good, right? So let's put that to the side for now. And if people want to check out, you know, my story, I think it's like episode 40 something, 49 maybe. So they can check that out. I won't repeat myself. But I think the whole concept of, you know, we're comfy in the UK. I mean, I was speaking to somebody recently. The UK is, you know, one of the best places to live for Muslims. It's like, you know, the best of the worst, yeah, but not the best place. So I think there's a lot of education needs to happen around, you know, what it means to be in a Muslim country versus a non-Muslim country. I think there's still a lot of misconceptions about that. I think a lot of people are under the impression that it's not that much different, or, you know, it's just like, you know, everywhere's the same. And also there's not much education on how it can be done. So if there's a camp of people who are, and there are a camp of people who want to make hijrah, they're not sure. They think the only way to do it is to get a job, right? The only way, I'll apply for jobs in such and such country. If I get hired, great, but it's short-term, temporary anyway. So they think, you know, what can I do? But there are other ways to do it. So again, this sort of educational aspect, you know, other ways include property investment. So in Turkey, I know there's property visa. Is it visa or citizenship by investment, right?
Yeah.
So you can actually, and if I'm not mistaken, it's like 250. They've lowered it recently. $250,000 gets you on the road to citizenship, and you can split that 4 ways, right? So you and 3 friends, or you and 3 family members, can split that, and, you know, suddenly that's not crazy. That's not a crazy amount of money. It's doable. It's a goal to aim for, and that's you know, this sort of approachability to sort of move into a Muslim country. It's becoming a regional, global trend that governments are trying to sort of lower that bar, right? They want to attract more people. UAE, the golden visa, and just the visa eligibility for via investment, via opening companies. Again, the bar has been lowered recently. Bahrain, I think, announced today a golden visa today. So everybody is looking to, you know, attract more people who are going to contribute to the economy. So, you know, from that perspective, there needs to be a lot of education about how people can actually make that move. It's not just about jobs. Again, it's investment. It's also starting a company, right? And it's not as costly as some people may think, right? Especially, again, in maybe not specific parts of the world, but in maybe a place that you're looking into, you can look into the business licensing and that kind of thing, and it may work out actually much cheaper than the UK, like setting up a company in the UK and paying tax there for 5 years. It may work out much cheaper for you to pay a license fee, for example, and go set up a company. So
do you think there's the issue, you know, like North Africa is known for like a lot of people going from North Africa to Europe, and what people always say is that they're so desperate to go, And part of the reason they're so desperate to go is because they don't know exactly what life is like in Europe, right? Like sometimes when they get there, they actually regret it. They want to go back, this and that. Maybe we have the same kind of problem where people don't know what life is like in the Muslim world, or because maybe they've only lived in one country, they don't realize how things could be better in other countries, etc. Do you think that's part of the reason we don't have like such huge demand for doing this?
Bro, don't underestimate the PR machine. Yeah, the PR machine is constantly churning out content, right, in favor of the West and against the Muslim world, quite frankly. Okay, so your Netflixes, your social medias, the algorithm, everything is showing you that the West is great and everywhere else, like, don't even think about it. Like, it's just like, forget it. But in reality, if the gap hasn't closed, it's closing rapidly, right? Like the West, I was talking to somebody, another one of our mutual friends a few days ago, and he was telling me a story of, it was a Muslim comedian or something like this. I can't remember his name, but he went to the US, right, on a trip, business trip. And I think he was in Hollywood for some reason. I don't know what he was doing there. So he went to Hollywood in like a nice hotel, and he was like shocked. He was like, outside the hotel, people were dying like regularly, like just dying on the street from overdosing or gang stuff.
Wow.
And he was telling me that they would just come and cover the body, and the body might be there for like a while because the ambulance takes money, the system is just like overloaded, whatever it may be. But like outside of his relatively nice hotel, there was just like dead bodies, like maybe like one every few days.
Wow.
And like he couldn't like he was said, like just like looking around the streets and stuff, like he didn't feel like he was living in a first world country, even though it's supposed to be Hollywood as well.
Especially,
Nice. Yeah, and he was like shocked, and he was like, man, the PR machine, it just tells us that like the US is the best country in the world. It's like, it's clearly not. Like clearly this is like third world stuff that I was involved in. And again, anyone who's lived in UK and other or visited other European countries, obviously it's got its good stuff. It's a lot of infrastructure is great. Obviously, we're not going to say that it's total rubbish. That would be untrue. But again, you look at things like crime, look at drug use, you look at general societal collapse. I mean, I guess you could. I mean, we're not going to get too deep into that stuff, but you look at like the kind of trends that are happening now. This is, especially in America, we're looking at societal collapse, literally, like slowly unfolding before our eyes. Whereas, unfortunately, a lot of these liberal ideas are spreading globally, but the Muslim world and maybe the Asian culture and the Muslim culture is much more resistant to it. Right, it's going to impact it, but it won't like deeply penetrate it and change the fabric of society. Even it won't change the fabric of society, and if it does, it's going to take a long, long time. Right, so
you're saying we need our own PR machine?
We need so much more than just a PR machine, but yeah, we need. So this goes to my next point, right? We're currently like too, as an ummah, we're too dispersed, I think, throughout the earth, I think, right? So you look at America, China, most of their human capital is regionally compacted inside their borders, right? Like they've got their human capital working for them, right? In the industries they need, manufacturing, everything, building companies, it's all happening there. Would America have been such a superpower if they didn't have 300 million people in their borders, but 20 million was over here, another 40 million was in Australia? It would be quite, you're not going to grow as quickly, right? Even though they may be all Americans, these guys are paying taxes over there, these guys are paying no tax, or these guys are building companies, but it's for the Australian government or for the Chinese government. And again, with China, just focusing specifically on economics here, if their population was dispersed, they're not going to grow as quickly, they're not going to grow at all maybe, right? Because it's just like too much, there's like a siloing effect, and that's what we've got right now. And we've got, our reasons for that. The reasons for that being, from my perspective, my parents, my grandparents, they were fleeing war, right? A lot of people in the UK, in the US, Canada, their grandparents at one point were fleeing a war, fleeing poverty, fleeing political unrest, whatever it may be. And so that's why we've got these communities in these places. But today, there's a lot of stable places. Alhamdulillah, there's a lot of stable places in the Muslim world that you can go to and be part of the machine. I know it's not like a cohesive machine. There's borders, and we're not, totally one body in that sense. But it's still better that a Muslim country is benefiting from your experience, your education, your ability, your creativity, if you're going to build companies, it's better that it's there. It's better that we're regionally compacted, regionally in the same area, benefiting from each other.
You've got like all the Turks that are in Germany. You've got the North Africans that are in like France or Spain or UK or even Canada. You've got the Lebanese who left from the civil war, Palestinians, etc., etc. So definitely, lots of
Somalis,
Indians, Somalis,
Pakistanis, So the list goes on. In fact, pretty much every country you could say there's some sort of
diaspora.
This is like the brain. It's like it's resulted in brain drains. One of our friends was telling us about this a few months back, and I didn't know there's a word for it, but brain drain, where it's like, to give an example, after World War II, when Nazi Germany lost World War II, a lot of their scientists and engineers and stuff, they went to America, right? Upon invitation, I would assume. They went to America and they bolstered America's scientific community, engineering and manufacturing community, and that helped America a lot in the decades after that. So that's brain drain, when your top minds leave, right?
Yes.
And that's kind of what's happened to the Muslim world, where a lot of our most creative minds or most educated minds are not in the Muslim world. And that's a problem, right? Because you're paying taxes to this government when you could be over here. If they're taxing you, or if they're not taxing you, you could be, putting that money to better use, investing in that community, or investing in that place, and building companies or building jobs. That's that. We've got to sort of find a way to drain the brain back. Basically, we've got to drain the brain back.
I guess what they would say though is that I can't make the progress that I made in the other country back where I'm from, and that's why I left.
I don't know. Give me an example. I mean, because most people.
Basic example, right? Which you hear of all the time, like footballers. Footballers in Africa, all over Africa, different countries in Africa. If they stayed in Africa, they would. I mean, could they even go pro? Obviously, I know Algeria better. In Algeria, yes, there are definitely pro footballers. But when they go to France, it just goes next level. They end up playing in the Champions League. They better end up, taking their potential to the next level. And some of these players, I can't remember which one exactly, they literally were blacklisted from playing in the national team when they were in Algeria. Like literally the scouts or whatever, they just were not interested. Sometimes for what do they call it? Like nepotism, corruption, you could say, corrupt reasons. So, then that's very frustrating. It's like, I've got the potential. I'm even willing to, I want to do this inside my country. But if you're going to stop me, I'll just go wherever I can to progress.
Okay. So I've got two responses to that. So firstly, you don't have to go back to your country specifically. I would say that's the first step. Like if you're Algerian, go Algeria. If you're Pakistani, go Pakistan. But if you're an aspiring footballer, then find the Muslim country that's going to support that, right? The one that comes to mind is the one you're in, right? Good place to start a footballing career. And if anything, you're actually more likely to become a pro in Turkey than you would be in UK or France, because it's a little bit of a lower bar. The quality, if you want, is not as high, unfortunately. But there's definitely a way through. There's many players that come through the Turkey system who are now playing in Europe and UK in Premier League. So there you go. There's one answer. If it's football, Turkey. If you want to do health and medicine, the Gulf is a pretty good place for that. Egypt's a pretty good place for that. So on and so forth. Software, Pakistan's becoming like a software hub at the moment. Again, UAE as well. Istanbul also. So I'm pretty sure you could find whatever you're sort of aspiring to be. If it's sort of high level, like footballer, that kind of thing, choose a country. Alhamdulillah, we've got a lot of countries where.
It's worth a try. I think it's worth a try, definitely. It's just that the people that are the top talents, they're deep into their life, right? They might be 40, 50 years old, and they will have these, how do you say it, memories or whatever, of how they were pushed aside, because these might be the first generation immigrants, right? I initially studied in my home country, Muslim country, and I wasn't able to progress there despite my efforts. And so now I'm here, and now you're telling me go back? No, thank you, right? But you're right, it requires, I think, something a bit of a deeper level of understanding the significance of doing something like this. You know what I mean? Like this, you have to have this vision that, because why would they give it up? Like, why would they give up their whatever it is, their professorship, their job, their whatever it is, in order to go back to the Muslim world where things might be more difficult and this and that? They have to have that vision where it's like, I'm doing this for the ummah, I'm doing this for this, for this, for that. And so a lot of the time that will come down to their quote unquote like religiosity, right? And the interest that they take in these things.
There is that aspect to it. And also I think, you know, if let's just say somebody isn't at that level, it's also, you know, staying in a non-Muslim land. Again, we've covered this, I think, in the episode 49, whether it was, or 59. You know, staying there has repercussions not just on you, but on your family and your offspring. You know, the future generations to come. So if you're super worried about dunya, then also, you know, bad news for staying in the West, because it's not just. I mean, obviously, it's going to impact your offspring potentially in their deen, right? So, you know, if you're in a space where you feel if you move back to a Muslim country, you've got less opportunity, then I would say, you know, it's time to sort of step back and look at the bigger picture here. You know, all right, maybe you do have to make some sacrifices. Maybe I'm not saying that making hijrah is going to be super easy and rainbows and this and that. I think that's probably not the case. In fact, you know, for most people, there's going to be sacrifices. There's going to be things that are not the same. You're going to have to get used to things. But if you're top of your game as a professor, you're top of your game as a footballer or a football coach, go back to your country and start a football academy. You know, start a tutoring business, or start some sort of, or try to apply to a university to start becoming a professor there, or go and start publishing books there. You know, you can, or start, you know, recording your YouTube series from there, your YouTube course from there. You know, there's different ways you can sort of adapt and still thrive as a person in the dunya, while at the same time safeguarding yours and your families and your offspring's akhirah as well. So I'm not saying it's like a total no-brainer. Like, yeah, if you're a top of your game, just go back to Pakistan and you'll continue to, you know, the upward trajectory will continue. But yeah, like I said, one, pick the country you're going to. You know, if you're big in business, there's Muslim countries that are going to, you know, it'll be a good place for you to go business-wise. If you're big in sports, same. If you're big in health, same. So, you know, you've got a choice. And at the same time, yeah, there might be an element of sacrifice, but inshallah khair.
I think there'll definitely be an element of sacrifice, but that's why you've got to look at it from the akhirah perspective. And also in some countries, it's actually about getting on the plane or whatever early, right? Like we don't know, right? People talk about Turkey or Kazakhstan or whatever, that these countries are well positioned to like explode in the next years. So you never know, like you could pick one of those, you know, right countries, and you'll actually end up being the top of your game in one of the top most influential countries. That could happen as well, right? So that's true. But I think definitely I wouldn't expect there not to be compromise. I think it could be very frustrating. Like I know personal stories where people are trying to be entrepreneurial in the Muslim world, and it's just like blacklist after blacklist after blacklist, like or what's the better word would be, bottleneck, or just nobody wants you to succeed, right? Even though you're not taking money away from anyone in order for you to succeed, but it's very, very frustrating. Like, so I do empathize with that, but I think if we have this akhirah lens, it becomes a bit easier to swallow. It becomes a bit, you'd be more willing to take those sacrifices or compromises and stuff. One thing that I think is a big opportunity is, so, you know, like, for example, Philippines, even Pakistan, there are now thousands or tens of thousands, even more people working remotely in those countries, right? And I think that's an opportunity, right? Where if we could develop, say, offices, you know, co-working spaces with good internet, even good computers, this is something that certain governments might be interested in developing, right? Where it's like, we're going to supply the equipment for you to build your own income from remotely, right? So we'll provide the office space and the computers and the internet. Now you guys will even supply, let's say we buy access for you to these online course sites, right? Like, what's the LinkedIn one? I can't remember, right?
Yeah, Linda.
Yeah, or it was Linda, maybe it's something else now. Anyway, something like that. All, like anyone who applies to join one of these centers, we're going to give them that so they can go and learn. And I reckon, yeah, in like 5-10 years, you would actually have like a good industry of people feeding their families from that work, and they don't have to leave the country. You know, they don't have to leave the country. So I think that's an opportunity, definitely. Sometimes. Yes. You know, like I know in North Africa, there are quite a few, like in Morocco, for example, quite a few doing this type of work. But maybe what holds them back is they're not that strong in English in those countries. So again, like whatever is needed, just it's cheap to put this stuff in place for a government, Yani. But obviously the government has to be seriously concerned about it in the first place, which, you know, a lot of the time they're not. But I think that's a big opportunity.
I think there's good news, I think, right? I think these two trends are converging, right? So the trend of more Muslims looking into doing hijrah, and I even checked it on Google Trends, by the way. I actually checked, like, people searching for this, and if you look in like 2004 to now, there's an upward trajectory of people searching for hijrah.
Right.
So there's a trend, right? And I do emphasize it's got to be a big trend, right? There's no point like 10 people a year doing this. It's got to be a movement, right? This is what I'm hoping to spark, or somebody can spark. There needs to be a movement of people moving to Muslim lands. And also the other trend that's like converging with this is, it does seem to me that many Muslim governments are, you know, trying, like I said before, they're trying to implement policies to attract people, right? So cheaper investment visas, cheaper just like business costs, that kind of thing. And it's secret that a lot of the Gulf countries, they're looking for people to come and work there and support the economy. So these two trends are sort of converging in a good way, to the point where, you know, I think it's a good time, or, you know, especially between now and next 5 years, is going to be a good time to make the jump. And I think if this thing does become a movement, it has to be in tandem with the governments, right? So I mean, if I was to build this, probably one of my first steps would be, okay, I need to like get in touch with the UAE government and say, you know, this is what I'm thinking. Like, how can you support me? How can we work together? Or the Turkish government, or Egyptian government, and all the governments. You know, I think, you know, every government's interested in this. It would have to be government supported, government approved, for it to really catch on, right? Because, like you said, the policies have got to be there too. And then at the same time, like I mentioned before, educating the people in the West and saying, look, this is how it's done, enabling them with like a blueprint, right? So, okay, you're a person who's got a degree in the UK. Here's your blueprint to getting a golden visa in Bahrain, or citizenship in Turkey via investment. It's like an actual blueprint and a guide. This is what you should do. Here's the agency you should talk to. Here's where you should go in Istanbul to the office. And it tells them exactly how it's done. So having that for like each country, or like, you know, the top 10 most popular countries, that would be great. And then after that, so you've got that, the education aspect, the enablement aspect, so these guides, YouTube or whatever it needs to be, showing people exactly how it's done. After that, it's like, okay, empowerment, right? So how do we actually empower people to do this now? They know how to do it. Maybe they need to push. Maybe they want to invest in Turkey and get the citizenship, or maybe they want to open a company in the UAE, but they haven't quite got the funds, right? So how can our initiative either be the extra investor, the extra co-founder, or how can it build a portal or a community where it's like, okay, Ameen wants to invest in a house in Istanbul. He's got 25% or 50% of the funds needed, and, you know, here's a community where everybody's looking to do the same thing, and Ameen can go find 2 other investors or 1 other investor, and bang, there you go. They've come together, they've invested in the property, and now they can both get their citizenship, or they're both now co-founders of a company in the UAE, wherever it may be. So those 3 things: education, enablement, and empowerment. Again, it's got to be government backed, it's got to be government approved, I think, for it to really work. But yeah, this is the initiative that I'm thinking about, and either one day I want to try and do it, or I'm hoping someone listens to this and beats me to it, quite frankly.
And there are actually, I think what you'll find is a lot of the, let's say this was in place, a lot of the people taking advantage of it would not be in the West at all. I think there's a huge movement within Muslim countries, or from Muslim countries to Muslim countries, right? Like, I just think about all the Chechens that are in Turkey, for example, right? All the Tajiks that are in Turkey, all of the Jordanians in UAE, etc. Like, the people that I think a lot of the developers that built Souk.com, which now got acquired by Amazon, they're Jordanians, because like in the Arab world, Jordan is known as the place that kind of produces Arab developers. So they even had an office in Jordan where I guess most of the developers were working from. So yeah, I think a lot of the movement would be between these countries. I mean, you see that in UAE, of course. You see Lebanese, you see people from Morocco, etc. A lot of people go there looking for opportunities. In Turkey, you find people, like I said, from the Central Asia and etc. far and wide. So obviously, the Muslims in the West is actually a very small group of people. They might be some of the more qualified or the more experienced, so that's always a bonus. But I think we'd find a lot of movements all around, really. And of course, the big one is the 100 million or whatever Muslims that are in India as well.
Exactly, yeah. You're right. You're very right, man. It's not just from outside the Muslim lands that people need to be attracted, or people are already attracted. What was I going to say? So one thing this leads to, right, that maybe puts the emphasis back on those who are in non-Muslim lands, is that currently the Western world is known as is where the business happens, right? Or if it's not happening there, it's trying to align itself with that, right? So Silicon Valley is where the software is built. In Pakistan, you're working late hours, so you can be on the Slack, or be on the calls with them. If you're based there, you're on the calls with them to make that happen. And if there's a call during Jummah time, then you're pulling your hair out because it's like, oh man, I don't want to have a call. I've got Jummah now, but my employer back in San Francisco, they're having a big call. I do. Everything is sort of pushed over there because that's where like the human capital is and where the stuff is happening. If we push people from there, even if it's just the Muslims, again back to these places, we build things over here, then that emphasis will slowly shift, right? If we start building stuff here, it will take time, but that emphasis will slowly shift. So the more people we have inside the Muslim lands than outside, the faster that will happen. That evolution will happen. And we were talking about this before we hit record. I think the end goal here, or one of the end goals, should I say, is that we need like just one or two Elon Musks. Yeah, just one Elon Musk, man. We'll change the paradigm. Just imagine Elon Musk was a practicing Muslim, right? Or Jeff Bezos, or both. Just the paradigm shift on Earth that would actually bring, right, through social media, through the kind of stuff that they're investing and promoting. They can actually invest and promote in good stuff, Islamically good stuff, and promote that and talk about that. And just imagine the social impact, the global social impact. So if maybe the next Elon Musk is a Muslim living in Canada, right? But we don't want you to do that from Canada. We want you to do that from like Pakistan or Turkey or UAE or Egypt. Come over here, build that company here, keep that wealth inside the hands of the Muslims, basically, and that way you can hire Muslims. You can actually build infrastructure, like digital infrastructure and real stuff, for the Muslims. That's good. That's only going to bring good. And it doesn't mean that people in the West can't benefit from it, but it's just that, things are happening over there now. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. So, that's kind of what we want to do. We want to sort of push the emphasis back our way. We want to reclaim some or not reclaim, but get a seat at the table, right? I think it was, I hate the guy. I'm not going to mention his name. That big billionaire guy. You know who I'm talking about. The big billionaire. His name begins with C. Yeah, CH. I ain't going to mention his name there because I hate him. But he said something good, yeah. And our friend was telling me about it. He reminded me of the quote. He said, there's like 50 people that run the world, right? And you can call it Illuminati or whatever, but the 50 richest people on Earth, they run the world, right? They're influencing policy, they're lobbying leaders and that kind of thing. And again, you can see with Elon Musk, right? Elon Musk actually visits countries, and like the president greets him. He's actually talking because he's influential. So this guy was saying, and he's one of these billionaires, right? He was saying these billionaires, they've got a seat at the table, and they run stuff, and it's their policies, it's their agenda that's getting pushed. Okay, so his advice to people was, be big enough, get the billions, so you can have a seat at the table and push your agenda. Simple as that. So we need to get to that table. We need a practicing Muslim or 10 on that table, pushing good agendas, you know. So yeah, that's pretty much the vision, man.
Everything goes back to Elon Musk, yeah.
Yeah, he's Jeff Bezos. We're more comfortable with Jeff.
It's like, this thing going on with Joe Rogan getting kicked off Spotify or having issues and blah, blah, blah. Somehow, everyone is suggesting that he leaves Spotify and then he grab Elon Musk and they set up their own media thing. Yeah. It's like their own YouTube or whatever. And it's like, what does Elon Musk have to do with media? But he just gets pulled in it. It's like he can make anything happen.
Everyone thinks Elon Musk has got like unlimited time. It's like, yeah, he's doing like 20 things. You may as well build a new YouTube as well while he's at it.
Yeah. I'd be interested to know what Achi Tweet thinks about that, because I feel like out of the two of us, he's more conservative in praising people like Elon Musk or Bezos or whatever.
So as we should be.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, we could get a seat at the table, or we could make our own table even. When I'm listening to you though, a lot of it, I'm just thinking like stuff like, so for example, European countries, like the big ones, UK, Germany, I hate to say France, they are competing with each other, right? For where for example, the finance capital of Europe is going to be, and these things, they compete with each other. But they do have some like reasonable cooperation as well. I mean, just the fact that they're in the EU is like a big level of cooperation. I think it would help a lot if Muslim countries had that. But again, it comes down to the will of the governments. And right now, I just feel like we're at a stage where we just happen to have governments that they're actually not that bothered about these things. And it's like, I'm all for just trying your best, trust in Allah. Try your best, trust in Allah. But when we're like having the conversation about the potential for things happening, I always just think like you said, get what do you say? The top something is in Canada, the top Muslim whatever is in Canada, let him start his business in Egypt, bro. That just makes me like facepalm, because companies try to do these things, like even Western companies try to move to these countries where Egypt has 100 million people living in it, etc. And it's not a joke of a market to take advantage of, but a lot of the time they just find it too difficult to do business there. And part of it is the government not having like the rules in place, accountability, this and that, corruption. Part of it is also the businesses themselves. They don't want competition coming in. They don't want anyone to threaten their position in the market. And so sometimes we do have to admit that the everyday guy doing the effort on his own is not actually going to move things too much. It doesn't mean he shouldn't try. It doesn't mean that he shouldn't, because Allah's capable of anything, and it's not like it's never happened before. But we can't be naive. I'm saying, like, we need some shift in that side of things as well.
I'm definitely painting this as like super achievable and easy. I know this is like pie in the sky stuff. This is like it would be. That's why I said it needs government. This has to be done. If I'm going to launch this one day, inshallah, or somebody else does, either I'm going to, or my advice is, look, go to the governments first and pitch it and try and work with them and get them on board, because that's the way it's going to. It has to come from the government. You need the government support. But also, as well as that, again, like I said, it's got to be a movement, right? So one person moving to Egypt to do this is not going to move the needle. But if Egypt suddenly sees like a 70% or whatever, let's be realistic, a 20% increase in people moving from US, Canada, and UK to Cairo 3 years in a row, it's growing, they're going to notice that. They're going to say, oh, okay, there's a trend happening here. We need to look at this. Like, do we need to change things? Like, we want to keep these people, something's driving them here. We want to find out what's driving them, and we want to keep them because this is good for us. So the more this happens, government's policies are also a reflection of just the reality on the ground as well sometimes, sometimes people don't want to hear that because it puts a blame on the people, but sometimes it's like, what's happening, that's going to actually dictate policy sometimes. So if this movement starts happening, then you will see reflection in policies, because that's just the way policies are made, right? People, and especially if it's going to impact the economy positively, which it would, you know, that government's going to want to keep you there. So you'll see changes happening slowly if it's a movement, if it's not an anomaly, if it's not an outlier, if it's a real trend, a real movement, then that stuff will slowly, inshallah, change. But yeah,
I think that movement, it can come about. I think I might have already said this. Like literally, it's got to be based like on taqwa and like education on, like, why would I sacrifice or compromise a little bit at least on my dunya, like to then go and work in the Muslim world and kind of contribute to the Muslim? Why would I do that? It's got to be for an akhirah reason, really and truly, right? So people have to value the akhirah, right, firstly, and then they have to connect contribution to the ummah. They have to connect that directly with their akhirah and how it will benefit them in the akhirah. So that comes now we're talking about literally, you know, little talks after salah kind of level, right? Where it's just like encouraging the average person. But, you know, this is the ebb and flow of life and your cycles of history, that we have awakenings, and then we have times where maybe the average kind of iman is a bit lower, etc.
I think like what I'm proposing is is always a secondary cure to whatever disease we have as an ummah, right? The first cure is always to return to the Quran and Sunnah, as the Prophet ﷺ taught us, and as the companions understood it, and the Salaf understood it and practiced it. That is always going to be the cure, right? And that's a cure to what you're saying now, which is, you know, there's going to be a big chunk of Muslims who are like, well, kind of comfy, yeah, it's not going 100% our way, but comfy, I've got my income, I've got my degree, you know, it's all set up for me. So the original cure and the first cure is, of course, to return to the Quran and Sunnah. And then after that will come, okay, I get it now. This is why here is a bad place to be. Now I've got to move. And then comes this secondary thing that I'm talking about. So for sure. And I think that's the same for every plan to strengthen the ummah that's not let's return to the Quran and Sunnah first, is dependent on let's return to the Quran and Sunnah first, usually. Always. Because and of course the end goal of any plan to strengthen the ummah has to be to get the people to return to the Quran and Sunnah anyway. And if it's not, then it's not an Islamic plan. It's not a good plan anyway, right? So me saying this is not just to, hey, let's like build the economies of our Muslim countries. Like, obviously that's good, but the aim is so that people can be closer to Islam, so people can be stronger Muslims, so we as an ummah can be stronger Muslims, and our children can be stronger Muslims. That's the end game. And the first step towards that is always return to the Quran and Sunnah. So that people see the value in that and go and do it.
Yeah, one thing I remember just now is, you know, this whole Turkey discovering the gas field in the Black Sea and all that. I remember Erdogan, he was giving a speech, maybe when he announced it or something, and he was saying that we hired German engineers or something like that, and their government was threatening them, saying, you know, don't you dare go and help Turkey to discover gas and all of that. And he said, in order to show our commitment to them, we just gave them citizenship, you know. And those Germans, I guess they're not Muslim and stuff, but, you know, that's like a small scale, but it's the kind of thing that could happen, right?
Yeah, and again, like, this is the trend that we're seeing across the Muslim countries. Citizenship, long-term visas in places where 10 years ago was like, don't even ask about it. It's now becoming a possibility. And you can see in 10 years' time, it may be even a lower bar of entry to that. And again, it's because they're trying to attract good, educated, working people who want to come build the economy and come and do interesting stuff in this part of the world. So like I said, it's these two trends converging. Turkey, again, like I said before, they've lowered I think before it was to $1 million or $500,000 to do this whole citizenship thing, and now it's 250. So they either halved it or they cut it down to 25% of what it was previously. That in and of itself shows you, you know, they want to attract people. So
well, they want to attract money at least, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Let's not be naive. All the countries want to attract. They don't want to attract every single person who's going to come here and like be homeless. They want to attract people who are going to come and contribute to the economy. So that's fair enough. Yeah,
I mean, they got enough refugees, I think. They're doing their part on that side of things as well. And you know, in a positive kind of frame of things, there's a lot of opportunities out there, really, isn't there? in terms of, for example, we look at, across the world, the trend is people trying to cut down on fossil fuels and this and that. A lot of countries, when it comes to fossil fuels, it's a huge ship that takes decades to turn. It's like on this podcast recently, they're like, if you're on one of these huge tankers and you see an iceberg, it's too late. You're already going to hit it. You can't turn in time. And the world economy and the way we generate energy and all of that, it's a huge machine, like a huge ship that takes decades to turn. But some countries have, aging infrastructure when it comes to how they produce energy, or they're just, whatever, they have burdens, right? Liabilities that stop them. But again, maybe the Muslim world is a bit more green in that sense, where if we want to turn our economy to whatever, nuclear or whatever, maybe it's more possible than in other countries. It might be smoother, especially since a lot of us, we're not really democracies. So if we just decide to do it, we can do it. So there's positive things, Yani. Is there any, I just mentioned nuclear energy, but is there any other areas like this? I guess there's solar panels, there's even, I guess, the future of transport where, because batteries are changing, getting better and better, like this whole electric scooter thing is new only because of battery technology, I think. And that's the whole thing where it's like, now it's much easier to get to a metro station because of something like that, or electric bikes or whatever, very popular in China, etc. So are there any other areas you can think of where it's a bit new and we could take advantage of it?
I think like coding is still super new, right? So it's like, for example, like people think coding is, I missed a train on coding, but we're still super, super new. And the good thing about coding is that every few years there's a new trend in coding where it's sort of the gravy train returns to the station to pick up more. So again, I was talking to our mutual friend, and there was a certain type of something, some sort of code, right? And it's very new, very niche. And there's only like 60, I think I was saying there's only 16,000.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, so there are only 16,000 of these developers who know how to code in that coding framework, coding language, that's the one. And they're charging, I think he said they're charging like $1,000 an hour now, just for that, right?
Okay.
So like I said, every now and again, and this is a brand new type of thing. So every now and again in tech, in coding specifically as well, like I said, the gravy train goes back to the station and you can jump on and, you're one of the first movers to that framework or that language. So, getting into tech, getting into coding, there's still tons of value, and the value is renewed every few years via a new avenue somehow. On top of that, AI, VR, machine learning, these types of, learning to code and build those kind of experiences, obviously is going to be massive growth in that sector. So yeah, those places, just coding in general, and then, within coding, those sort of niches that are small but taking off quickly, that's a good place to start.
I think another trend is technology products that serve quote unquote first world countries, right? So like Turkey has its own Amazon, Pakistan has its own Amazon, and that those products or those platforms, they're made in the country by its own developers. And so it's like it's a bit of a copycat thing, but it's still providing lots of jobs and services and this and that.
It's a great way in, and I've thought about myself like to do something like, because again in UAE there was Careem, which was the region's Uber. So they built Uber before Uber could expand into this region. They built Careem here as a competitor, and then Uber ended up buying them for like, I think it was like $3 billion, something like that. Yeah, a lot of money. And also the same thing you mentioned before, Souk. Souk was built here before Amazon could get here, and then he was like, hey, come buy us, and Amazon bought them. So building something that exists in the West and taking it to your country or taking it to another country, third world or not, if it's not there yet, then you can build it there. And good news is it's already been tested in other places. It's going to work, and inshallah you'll get acquired or just be a sick company.
And I think the thing that's unique about technology is that it's so cheap to start up that you don't need to charge a lot of money for it to make sense.
Yes.
Okay. So, for example, if I was going to open Starbucks in whatever poor Muslim country, that might be hard to justify. Yeah. But if that Muslim country, like Indonesia, Indonesia has, I don't know how many 100 million people in it. If I, I just need a product that is mainstream enough that, a few 10 million of them will adopt it, then that's a very good company, very serious company. And so sometimes with technology, think of all the Muslim countries with lots of people. You've got Nigeria, you've got Egypt, you've got Indonesia, Malaysia, not too many, but Turkey has 85 million, etc. So you just look at these countries and you think, well, they don't have their own this or their own that. And it's like, to start this going, some of these huge, bigger platforms, you just need a few $1 million really. And of course you can start small. So this is an opportunity, I think, as well, like native, local built services.
Absolutely. And I also just want to put it out there, because some people may be listening to this and thinking this is just like pipe dream stuff. So I'm not going to go and launch an Uber in Indonesia or anything like that. But another thing that's super underrated that anybody could start, is almost no startup costs, is a services company, right? Some sort of agency, some sort of just online service or offline service where, it doesn't cost you anything to start. It will cost you whatever the business like licensing fees are, plus maybe like logo design and just like, and then you get started on your Instagram or your Facebook marketing, or your Twitter marketing. And that's it. That's all the technical cost you need. And you can go and start up an agency doing social media marketing, doing landscaping, doing home decorating, whatever it may be. You can go to a Muslim country and just raise the standard. If you've been doing painting and decorating in London and you're very good at your craft, go to a Muslim country and just raise the standard and say, look, these are the standards that I've learned. Here's what my 10 years of experience has taught me. I'm going to launch a company doing it. The startup costs are next to nothing, but pretty much. And there may be a good opportunity where the standard just isn't quite as high as you think it should be. And you can go and disrupt that and be the market leader. So don't think you have to go and like build an next Facebook. It could be whatever you've been doing or whatever you want to do, basically, in a services way, in a way it's just like you producing or you offering services. And the startup costs are minimal.
Yeah. Another one that I was thinking of was, and in these markets, no doubt, I think I came across Mohammed Faris from Productive Muslim. He was interviewing the founder of an Indonesian tech company, and I think there's something to do with finance, right? So there's some fintech thing, but they had very much a culture, Islamic culture within their company, So I think he said we only work 4 days a week. We have Friday off. And he said, that came from a point of view of thinking that if our staff can focus more on Friday and do their ibadah, focus on their ibadah on Friday, spend time with their family on Friday, that will actually, any lost productivity time will be made up in the form of barakah in the other 4 days of the week kind of thing. So it's a very much, coming from an Islamic paradigm. But this was an example of a fintech company that is focused on serving Indonesian customers who are Muslims, right? And obviously finance and Islam, there are compared to non-Muslims, we have a lot of different ways of thinking about finance. And so that's definitely going to be something where we probably wouldn't need or want a non-Muslim company copy pasting their model onto our country. We need something a bit more customized, a bit tailored.
Yeah.
Another example I thought of was, China, I remember, 5, 10, probably more like 10 years ago, China was just they call it the factory of the world's factory, right? You tell them what to make, they make it, okay? Or they see something being made and they make their copy of it. And that was very limiting because it just meant that they were always only ever that middle layer where they produce, They don't design and they don't sell it. They just produce it. They just actually manufacture the thing. But what they've done is they've transitioned, some of their companies at least, they've transitioned into being their own retailers kind of thing, their own salespeople. And the way they did that was learning communications and marketing and these things, right? Like if you look at Xiaomi, it's very much, the Chinese company Xiaomi is very much, in terms of branding, pretty much on the level of these American companies. And I think we have something similar going on like with when it comes to tech, at least, and development, we have India and Pakistan. There's so much development talent there, but the branding and that side of thing is weak over there. So again, if they could keep the same kind of engineering or whatever talent, but have that layer of good branding and good communications, again, why can't they come out with a Xiaomi kind of thing?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And those sort of, again, you can go and start that agency, right? It's a way of saying, okay, this particular region, they're slacking in this particular aspect. We could start an agency or a company to address that and raise a level, and for you, maybe just the average level, but there you're raising the level, and suddenly people want to work with you because you've got that Western education, you've got that Western experience, and now you're based in Islamabad or Cairo or wherever you're going to be, and people are going to come to you and use you, and you're going to raise the industry's level. This is what we need.
Yeah. And I feel like it's also a time where, funnily enough, even though a lot of people are talking about increasing authoritarianism, it's also a time where people are just making random currencies and getting away with it, right? So there's kind of both trends happening at the same time. And I say that because like Omar Suleiman from Wahid, he came on and he was talking about how they're going to launch their bank, which is like not in the normal banking system at all. And it's like, they're not going to use your money to invest in any halal, haram company. They're not even going to invest your money. It's not even that model where they're lending it out to people or anything.
Yes.
And when he was saying that, I was thinking like, how are they going to let you do that? Like, because if that gains steam, that could be a very big movement, couldn't it? But at the same time, like if we live in this world where people are making Dogecoin, like why can't we try these things?
Yeah, but again, like I mean, they probably. The bad news is like with that kind of thing, the money's still in that country's central bank, right? So they're still going to say, okay, at least we're still bringing in money into our central bank and it's being stored there and that kind of thing. So again, if you launch that in a Muslim country, one, they'll be more open to that happening because it's like, for example, Islamic banking is big in the Muslim world. It may not be as Islamic as we want, but they know the market is there. They know the how can I put it? Yeah, the market is there and they're trying to meet the demand basically, right? How they're doing it. So it's a bit more like, okay, accepting to build an Islamic fintech product anyway. And at the end of the day, the money's still going to be in the central bank of the government anyway. So they'll benefit from that perspective. So that's probably how they'll be allowed to do it because technically speaking, the government isn't exactly losing out in the end.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure whatever country this is done in, I don't think they would have an issue with it. It was more, I was thinking, these the banking cartel kind of thing. If it gained enough steam, it'd be interesting to see, what they do to try and stop that. It might be that, khalas, like the world is too decentralized for you to really control things at that level. I don't know. But yeah.
At that stage, what might happen is that the banks may just turn themselves to an NFT and then just like, it's done.
Game over.
Game over. No, they're just NFTs, bro. So, now what?
Yeah. And one, actually, we already discussed this. Yeah. Any other trends you can think of?
Not off the top of my head, to be honest. Just tech in general, coding in general.
Because we're basically talking about things that are kind of a bit wide open. They don't have these very established players in them. Or it's like low barrier to entry kind of stuff. And like if you're talking about, a Muslim country having the same manufacturing infrastructure as China, no, that's like 100-year job kind of thing. But these things are like literally 10 developers in a garage can maybe, compete with something.
I've got another one actually, agriculture, right? Agriculture is a big one. So firstly, agriculture in a sustainable way. Agriculture also in a way that doesn't use much water, right? So water shortage is going to become like a global thing in the next 10, 20 years. Even in places where you wouldn't expect. So right now, obviously, you look at deserts, you think, okay, I get it. They're going to have water shortage, but it's going to become a global thing. So a lot of companies and countries are investing in what's it called, hydroponics.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't,
yeah.
yeah,
Hydroponic. Yeah.
you know, yeah, low water consumption farming, right? Where basically instead of a farm being like a big expanse of land, flat land, it's more like a skyscraper and just like full of, herbs and fruits growing in the skyscraper, and it's like indoors and stuff. So there's a lot of growth there, I know. So that could be another way, you inventing a new way to do that, a more efficient way to do that, or just starting a company with existing technology. That's still probably do quite well, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah. Hydroponics is sick, bro. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's not just about less water, but it's less space. Less space needed
Yes.
because you can stack it on. And I know a lot of the companies that are in this space, they actually just use shipping containers. Where it's like you get something that already exists. Maybe it's like something that's abandoned shipping container or cheap or whatever, and you stack them on top of each other and pack them with these. And basically the plants are not in any soil. They're just kind of floating in the water, and the water is being cycled. So they're adding nutrients to the water. And so you don't need soil, and you can just stack it up and up and
Yes.
up.
Yeah, one thing I've seen is like a trend. So this is actually going to like do more than just impact farming. It's going to impact the way like we buy it. We sort of buy and sell our groceries, right? So I can't remember where it was, but um, I can't remember where it was. But it was basically a supermarket was like growing the stuff that they're selling, like the same space, right? So they had like a section for growing it. I'm sure it was a supermarket here in UAE, in Dubai. They had an area of growing the stuff, like the herbs, like basil, whatever else they were growing. And like next to it was just like the shelf. It's like, we're growing it here. When it's ready, you put it on the shelf, you can buy it. And I also saw another restaurant, like a cafe, doing something similar where they were growing their own avocados. So they took the avocado pips from people's breakfasts, and it was like on display. So they put it back in the water, like these toothpick things, and it was growing. It was like, next week that's going to be somebody else's breakfast, right? So this sort of if that at scale, supermarkets may get to the point where all the stuff they're selling is actually grown like upstairs, like the 10 floors above us is just out per farm, and the stuff is fresh, it's organic, it's right there, but the cost isn't that. The cost is like the same as today because it's like we're not using farmland, we're using like just like indoor office space basically. So
I mean, it's
that's a
just
big
about
trend.
it's about just getting the technology and the whatever materials, equipment needed for it. When that is mass produced and people are buying it and using it a lot, then it becomes cheap. And then when that part of it becomes cheap, nothing else is actually expensive. Like you said, the land is cheap.
Yeah.
Of course, water always has its a cost, but water, as far as I understand, is recycled in this kind of setup. But yeah, it's actually, I was watching, I think Vice did a little story on this because Elon Musk's brother is running a company. He's got a hydroponics company basically. So the story was about his company. And yeah, bro, like I lost my trail of thought. Yes, there's another video I watched about them doing this in Singapore. And there's another one, I think, in Qatar. Because of the blockade, they had an issue with getting certain foods. So they started experimenting with growing food. And being in a desert, I guess this made sense. So it actually forced them to invest in these things and kind of play around with these things. And there was like a story on how that, I mean, I think it was Al Jazeera, so they made it look better than it is maybe. But this Elon Musk brother guy, I think he was talking about how when you grow things with hydroponics, the quality will be better in terms of nutrition per gram of lettuce or whatever it is. Because as soon as you pull that out of the ground or you pull it off the tree, it starts to degrade and lose its nutritional value. But if you're pulling it off and eating it 30 minutes later, that's better, of course. So the quality is better. Perhaps, I don't know, but yeah, maybe it being organic is easier to do. And you don't have to transport it across the country or even across the world. So it's interesting. I don't know, like, how would it work for avocados? You talk about avocados, but I mean, I know avocados need a ton of water, but something bigger like a pear or an apple, like that grows on a tree. So is it not possible with trees yet, or?
I don't know, man. I'm definitely no expert. I imagine it wouldn't, but it's definitely good for things like herbs, like herbs and tomatoes. That kind of stuff can grow like that. Avocados, it was interesting how they was doing it. It was literally like they had a plastic cup, like the kind of plastic cup you drink your water out of. They had put did they skewer the seed? I think they skewered the seed somehow with this toothpick thing, and they just placed it like half in the water, something like that. And I guess it was going to sprout, right? That seed was going to sprout, and it would go into the water and start growing. And maybe at that point, I put it into something else. I don't know. But they had like 10 of them. They had like 10 of these plastic cups with 10 seeds on top, and yeah, they were growing them. I don't know what the process is.
I'm just looking up what an avocado plant looks like. Okay, right. So it's not. I think it is kind of like a tree, but it's a small tree. It's a small tree, yeah. Interesting.
Fair enough. It must work.
Yeah.
I think I was overestimated. I think I said before it's like next week will be somebody else's breakfast, but I think it'll take a bit longer than a week to get there. But yeah, the idea is the same. The idea is the same. That they're sort of building
so it. Yeah. Well, you just need the vision, and then obviously to invest in this area. And we just gave 10 ideas that we know of. We don't even know all the ideas, but even one of these could really help in a country. Just one of these, like going full force on it.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. No,
go on.
No doubt there are drawbacks. Like I'm just thinking about certain countries and cities, there would be the ability to build the most amazing modern city based on the tech that's available, right? But then others, like Cairo, like Istanbul, like they have the same drawbacks as London and Frankfurt and these things, where it's just old city that's been built on top and built and built and built, and transforming that is much trickier.
Yeah, but again, that's another problem that somebody could come and solve, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know how they would solve that, but it's a problem. And if you can think of a way to solve it, then maybe that's...
Bro, just 3D print the NFT and it's game over.
Yes, man. We just need to get Elon Musk to invest, and that's it. We'll be cool. We'll be fine. But yeah, there's different problems, man. And a good way to spot these trends is look at go and look at each government's official news portal and see what they're talking about in terms of investing in certain things. So I'll talk about, the ministry of such and such has just signed a deal with this company to do this, or just signed a deal with this country to invest in this. And again, you'll see things like agriculture coming up. You'll see things like solar coming up, electric vehicles, infrastructure. You'll see those trends. You'll say, this particular government is super interested in this industry, or is super interested in this trend. That's a problem that they've got that maybe I can go and solve. And again, you start small, but that's at least it's a problem they're trying to fix, and you can maybe be the solution. Yeah.
Interesting stuff, bro. I wasn't sure how this episode was gonna go. I thought it had the potential to be dead, but it was a good handle. Because I didn't.
I think I have me, man.
No, it's because of the ideas I had written down. I was like, damn, where am I going with this? But alhamdulillah, you pulled it out for me, mashallah. One idea that I want to implement is just to ban all cars. So
I know. I don't agree. I don't think I agree with you, man. We've spoken about this before. I definitely get the whole trend of let's cut down on cars and let's make more cars electric. I'm definitely on board with that. Elon Musk. But at the end of the day, I think we do need cars, right? I do think cars are not going anywhere, and I think they've got a lot of benefits. But yeah, I think we were talking about this before, and you were like, we need less road space and more public walkable space, and I'm on board with that. But you want to go the full way, innit? You want to get rid of all the cars.
Because I'm trying to simplify things, yeah. If maybe there's a way where you can have people, give people the ability or the freedom or whatever to have their own car, drive wherever they want, and just control wherever they're turning and all that. Maybe there's a way to do that while doing what I'm trying to achieve, but that's going to be much more difficult than just banning all cars.
You know what gets me, right? So lots of walkable. So let's say your ideal city is lots of walkable communities clustered together. That's basically what it is, right? There's no cars, and there's no cars. So everywhere is walkable, and there aren't cars necessary because everything you need is in your community within a 15-minute walk. Is that right? That's that's
good, of course. Yes, that's slightly separate to the banning cars thing. Fundamentally, bro, the cars are inefficient. That's the fundamental reason to ban cars. They're very inefficient.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
From a purely scientific, fuel in, cost in, perspective, right? Because
it's like a
the counter argument is,
yeah.
for me, it's super efficient for me to get from where I am to where I want to go in 20 minutes in my own space rather than in 40 minutes in a shared space. That for me is super efficient on a human level. That's super efficient. That can't really be measured, if that makes sense.
No, that can even be measured, right? So we could say, on average, if we take point A to point B, one person in their car might take 20 minutes to do that. And right now, a person taking a bus might take 40 minutes to do that. Yes. Yeah. So you would say that the individual transportation is more efficient. Yeah. In terms of you. But if we take the average trip, how long it takes, it would decrease if we banned all cars. Because right now, you're thinking 20 minutes versus 40 minutes. But if we banned all cars, it would actually just take everyone, whether they, no one would have a car, right? So it'll take everyone 30 minutes, for example, right? Like, let's just say middle ground, or 25 even. Yeah. Because it might be hard to imagine it, because like if I imagine going somewhere 20 minutes away on a bus, that it would be a 20-minute drive. I imagine getting out, walking 5 or 10 minutes to a bus stop, waiting for the bus, getting on the bus, and then it's a bit slow, it's stopping a lot, and it takes 40 minutes. But what I'm saying, if we banned all cars, there would be bus stops everywhere. So you would never walk more than maybe 3-4 minutes to get to the bus stop. And then the buses would be like just flowing. Like you would probably not even wait more than a minute for a bus. And then everyone, you see, everyone wins that way. You get it?
I hear you. I see two potential problems with this though. One is that now you've got your entire population using this thing. I know you sent me a video of like Japan's economy, or Tokyo's, massive, like millions of people using their subway. I think it was Japan.
Yeah.
The problem I could foresee with that, with a subway, I think is much more doable. With buses, I feel like, when I think of buses, I think like when I was getting the bus home from school, right? There would not usually, but it would be common for there to be some sort of human problem, right? I.e., someone's come on the bus and they're refusing to pay. Right? It's just like, come on, man. I want to go home. I want to eat my sandwich and watch my cartoons. And this guy's come on, and he's refusing to pay. He's making a scene. And then other than that, there's like a fight on the bus, and the bus drivers have to stop the bus. Other times, it's just like, whatever is going on. So it feels like with more people using this stuff, it's almost like software where it's like more potential points of failure, right? So it's like literally cramming everybody into this bus system. You're gonna, the lack of traffic is going to be replaced by just pure human chaos, right? Because just like everybody's using this stuff. So that's one potential issue I can see happening. And secondly, I don't think it fully addresses the fact that just driving in a car is quite sick. I'll be real. Driving in a car is having your own space for you and your family. It's quite sick, and I don't think a bus will ever match that sickness. And I think I'm obviously making a joke, but I'm being serious too. Like that's like, I think it's going to be everybody who's got a car or has access to a car, like you with the Zipcar stuff. If that doesn't exist, I think your quality of life is better with the Zipcar than without the Zipcar. That's what I'm trying to say. Yes.
The whole argument here, though, is that it won't be better for everyone on an individual basis. Like people like you will lose out. Yes. But the greater good, like the average person will be better off. You individually will be worse off.
Maybe.
I agree with that 100%. Like that. But the thing is, I don't even believe you'd be much worse off because of all the improvements that I mentioned. And to go to your first point, I'll counter that by saying, what's more points of failure? 1,000 buses or 10,000 cars?
Yeah, I think that's a bit of a simplified way of looking at it though, because it's like 10,000 cars with everybody in their own private space. Because don't forget, it's the humans that are the problem. The cars are more than likely going to be fine. The bus is going to be fine. It's the humans. Don't underestimate the power of human stupidity, chaos, all that stuff, right? So cramming people in,
But we're not cramming because there's a bus every 30 seconds.
Okay, let's not say cramming. Let's not say cramming.
Yeah.
Let's say, there's...
everyone is traveling together rather than privately. Yes, I get that.
Let me give you a metaphor to understand what I'm trying to say, right?
Okay.
Let's say you've got a building. On the right side of the building, there's one large room, okay, and you've got 200 people on the right side of the building is one large room. It's just one big massive hall. On the other side of the room, there are 10 smaller rooms. Okay, and you got 200 people. You put 100 of those people into the big large hall, and you put the other 100, 10 at a time, into a smaller room. So it's 10 people per room. Okay, it's not a space issue. We're not talking about cramming.
Yes,
there's ample space, but
the density is the same.
Scenario,
maybe
density is the same. But in one scenario, everyone's together, and the other scenario, they're segmented. They've got personal space.
Yeah.
Which one are you more likely there to be chaos?
Yeah, the bigger room with more people in it.
So that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, if you
but by that logic, we need to ban cities. Because if everyone is spread out in rural, lifestyle.
But see the thing, cars help to silo it again, right? So
yeah, but I would say that's a society problem. That's a
probably right. Right. It's also just a human thing, though. I think obviously in certain societies you'll get more like stabbings and fights and robberies.
Yeah.
But it's also just a human thing. Like for example, let's say you're a pregnant lady and your water's just broken, right? Okay, now I need to get the bus to the hospital. I'd much rather.
With my plan, there would be taxis though, still, and the taxi would get you there faster because there's no traffic.
So now I'm more on board with that now. So if there is a possibility of a taxi, like it's an emergency, I don't want to have a leisurely trip on the bus.
No. Just to be clear, my plan is ban all private cars. Okay, maybe even we ban the private cars in cities only. Maybe outside the city it's allowed or something, but you ban that generally. What is allowed is obviously all public transport, taxis, business related vehicles, right? So to deliver goods, these kind of things, and police, fire, all of these things. What else would be allowed? So maybe we would say, yes, we're going to take a third of what was road and we're going to turn that into bike lanes, like bike or scooter or whatever lanes. Maybe that would be a form of private transportation kind of thing. You have to kind of see how that would work out. But then we've got the public transport, and you've got taxis as well. So that would be with the plan.
All right. The fact that there are taxis in your plan, it does change things a little bit. But still, I'm still sticking with the fact that having your own or having access to something you could personally drive, if you and your family, there's no taxi man in there. That is a level of sickness that I think most people wouldn't want to give up, and therefore, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm dictator, bro. So you just have to deal with it.
In that case, there you go, man. And here's the thing, right? So just I think this whole COVID thing, and just I think just in general now, I think people are seeing that democracies they suck, man. Democracies suck. What do you think? I think democracies suck. I think a good authoritarian.
I mean, it's going out of fashion, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess you can say that, man. I guess you can say that. And again, like the whole UK right now, I think the mask slips in the UK a lot, and the mask slips in the US a lot, but people still buy in, right? So the UK right now, this whole, I don't know if you're following it, the Partygate, they basically, the same week that they imposed like a really strict lockdown, Boris Johnson and all his pals, they had a big party, they were drinking and stuff.
Okay.
So, and they did it was like 2 or 3 parties. It wasn't even just one. So, this whole the level of corruption, the level of just they don't really care. They're not really by the people, for the people, that kind of stuff they try to push. That mask slips regularly. And yeah, I just think people in general are waking up to the fact that democracy is just a facade. And if you have a good authoritarian leader, I personally think it's actually a very good system.
Yeah, I think the only downside of that kind of setup is when a non-good one comes into it, right, into that seat. That's really maybe the only downside, and that's why they have, for example, in America, they have this Second Amendment thing, because they're like, we don't ever want to be in a position where we can't, try and remove someone tyrannical kind of thing. That's their way of dealing with it, Yani.
But then all that happens is that person, because all the what's the word? The the preventative measures they've taken to make sure they don't get like a really bad dictator, it's just replaced by, all right, we won't have one bad dictator. We'll just have like 20 bad people in the party just doing stuff.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So it's
there's
no shortage of bad people on earth. Don't worry about that. If you're going to have a party, if you're worried about one single man being bad and being bad to his people, that's a valid concern, but don't act as if it's any more difficult, quite frankly, for there to be 20 bad people in a party doing the exact same stuff, which happens. You know, we've seen it happen over the years, see it happen today in many parts of the world. So I don't think that's actually a concern that's restricted towards authoritarian governments. I think that's just like a human concern, and it penetrates any type of system.
Yeah, exactly. Like, as we've seen, like voting and stuff can be gamed so that instead of doing a coup d'etat or just refusing to leave your position, you can just game the election so you don't lose your position. So
yes,
I think ultimately it just comes down to taqwa kind of thing, like a lot of the time.
It comes down to, you know, don't worry about I mean, again, move to a Muslim country, make dua for the leaders, focus on yourself, don't become political, get on with your life. There's bigger fish to fry, and you haven't been made responsible for what the leaders are doing or this and that. If you get a chance to advise them personally, you might see them out somewhere, fantastic. If not, don't worry about it. Just get on with what you've been tasked with.
Yeah, and you know, when you're a citizen in the country, it's a bit different. I said this in the Hijra Q&A episode that I did. When you're an immigrant to a country, it's absolutely not expected you're going to get involved in how things work in the country on that kind of level, right? But if you were there long enough, maybe you become a citizen, or maybe you just really know the culture and know everything, then I do think part of bettering the Muslim world is getting involved, especially on a local level, to better things, right? Whatever it is. I remember I was listening to some sort of TV show or something about an Algerian guy, and he was saying, like, look, you know, the big guys that want the big prize and they're corrupt, they go after the presidency, they go after being ministers and these things. But the local elections is still kind of available for us to influence and to have like that, have someone good in charge, basically, at least on the local level. So whether it's doesn't have to be through governance per se, but we can do, we should actually, I think it's part of bettering the ummah to encourage certain changes and like lobbying, basically, this kind of thing. No matter the setup, whether it's democracy
I think
or otherwise.
I think every country's different. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah. So even in what you would call a dictatorship, there is space to influence the policies to the better, and especially when everyone's on the same side in terms of we want the country to be better. And I would suggest that we do this and this and this to help, for example, entrepreneurship thrive. And really, that's, you know, I wouldn't dismiss that as saying, oh no, that's political. I mean, it is political, but it's good, yani.
Yeah, what I mean by that is like, don't try to, again, usurp the leader. Like, usually, alhamdulillah, there's protocols in place where you can have your voice heard in a way that's fine, right? So, for example, in some countries, you'll find the royal court. Yeah, you're able to go to the court and speak to a member of the royal family or a representative and say, look, I'm facing this issue, or I don't think this has been fair. And, you know, you can raise a concern that way, and that's good. And similarly, more local stuff, you know, there's probably other ministries dealing with certain parts of the country, whether it's Ministry of Transport or whatever else it needs to be. They'll have a complaints or suggestions area. You can go visit them at their office and you can raise a complaint. But yeah, when I say don't get political, I'm saying, you know, follow whatever the government's got in place for you to make your voice heard. You know, stay within those limits, and, you know, don't try to go beyond those limits, I would say.
Yeah. So I need to put in my complaint that there's more than one car on the road.
Yeah. I'm not sure how that's going to go down.
Too many cars. Yeah, I honestly, I don't think it will happen, unfortunately. Although, as we were saying in the chat, in Europe, especially like Scandinavia and stuff, there are, I mean, even in London and Paris, there's more and more pedestrianization of city centers. So it looks like in 10, 20 years, central London might be just like walking and taxis and buses, maybe. So that is a trend.
Yes.
I guess as they do it, they're going to work out how much it works. Does it really work well? But yeah, just that even them, they're moving towards that very slowly. They're not banning. So I understand that won't happen. But it's interesting thought experiment because I'm actually not seeing any downsides or too many downsides really with it. But let them be the guinea pigs, I guess.
The sickness of the car, bro. Don't underestimate the sickness of the car.
I'll give you that in Jannah if you give up your 5 minutes faster journey time.
May Allah grant us Jannah.
Yeah. Okay, bro, this is a nice topic. Let us know, like by email or comments or whatever, if you like this type of episode, because I think it's a bit different, Kaya, right? Like usually the episodes are more, how do I say it? Less about economics, less about, I don't know, these kind of things, business per se, more about maybe social stuff or mindset stuff. But let me know, because that would help guide future episodes. Anything you want to end with? Anything you want to add, bro?
No, I think a good thing to reiterate is what I said before, which is, the ultimate and best cure for the ummah is always to return to the Quran and Sunnah upon the understanding of the companions and the Salaf. So make that your priority before we think about the big plan, the big strategy, and implementing this sort of trend and movement. Do that. This is advice to myself first and foremost. I need to do that. We as an ummah need to do that, and then that's the best way forward.
Cool. Jazakallah khair. Okay, go to mindheistpodcast.com if you want to give us feedback, questions, suggestions, etc. And we'll end it there, inshallah. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik, shadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khair for joining.
Barakallahu feek.